Okay, let's dive right into what is honestly one of the most impossible crime scenes we've ever covered. Welcome to today's Explainer. We're going to unpack a mystery at the historic Crescent Hotel in Denver, Colorado. And I promise you, this one is going to completely shatter your understanding of forensic science. I mean, we're looking at a scenario that starts as a standard emergency response, but it very quickly spirals into something that just defies all logic. We've got a historic hotel, an unsolved disappearance, and a sequence of events that will seriously make you question what's actually possible. So get comfortable because we're going to break down the whole shebang, the evidence, the timeline, and the downright chilling details of room 417. Right, so our story kicks off in the dead of night. It's exactly 2:31 a.m. A call comes into the local 911 dispatch center, and the dispatcher answers, but there's no frantic voice explaining an emergency. Instead, there's just the sound of a woman crying. And then, coming through the receiver, this terrifying whisper, "Don't let him find me." And then the call just drops. It completely disconnects. Obviously, police are immediately dispatched to the origin of the call, which happens to be room 417 at the Crescent Hotel. But guys, when the officers finally breach that door, they find a room that is entirely empty. I mean, there's no victim. There's no attacker. The bed hasn't even been slept in. Now, this is where things get really weird, because the physical evidence, or, the lack of it, is entirely impossible. The hotel manager insists to these baffled police officers that absolutely nobody has checked into room 417 for 3 whole years. See, the room actually suffered a fire 3 years prior. It was permanently closed off, and there was this thick, undisturbed layer of dust covering all the burned furniture. Yet, right in the middle of this completely sealed, dust-covered, abandoned room, the forensics team discovers something incredibly chilling. One fresh footprint. Just one single footprint belonging to a woman with literally nothing else around it. So enter Detective Ethan Brooks. He's assigned to figure out this absolute logistical nightmare, and he immediately starts digging into the hotel's history. The timeline he pieces together, it's startling. Exactly 3 years prior, a woman named Hannah Lewis vanished without a trace. Her last known location was the Crescent Hotel, her specific room, room 417. This perfectly lines up with the time of the fire that permanently sealed the room. And now, exactly 3 years later in the present day, a 911 call originates from that very same inaccessible room at 2:31 a.m. Detective Brooks suddenly realizes they aren't just looking at a prank call or a strange glitch. They are looking at an unsolved cold case that has somehow impossibly reawakened. But as you probably know, digging into a 3-year-old cold case is notoriously difficult. When Brooks reviews the initial investigation files for Hannah's disappearance, he basically hits a massive brick wall. The security footage from the exact night she vanished, it had been mysteriously erased. And honestly, this is a glaring reminder of just how easily an investigation can be completely derailed. Without that digital footprint, the original detectives had absolutely nothing to go on. No direction, no suspects to question. The trail had just gone completely cold because that digital evidence was tampered with, which effectively stalled justice for 3 long years. However, meticulous detective work often relies on finding the one tiny thing someone forgot to erase. It turns out the hotel still had these archives of old emergency recordings stored away, and Brooks found an audio file that had shockingly never been reviewed during the initial investigation. When he actually sat down and listened to it, the voices weren't even what caught his attention. It was the sensory details buried in the background. The recording captured 3 very distinct noises: a ticking clock, the sound of running water, and, most importantly, the blaring of a train horn. So the absolutely crucial point here is how Detective Brooks applied that background audio to the real world. He started investigating the local train schedules near the Crescent Hotel and discovered a massive, undeniable correlation. That specific train horn captured on the old audio recording, it always sounded at exactly 2:31 a.m., the exact precise time that the mysterious 911 call had just come into dispatch from the sealed room 417. This definitely wasn't a coincidence. It was a temporal anchor, connecting the tragic events of 3 years ago directly to the impossible events of today. So you might be wondering, how on earth do you use a single timestamp to find a missing person? Well, using that precise 2:31 a.m. marker, investigators were finally able to reconstruct what might have happened on the night Hannah disappeared. By mapping out those auditory clues, calculating the water, the clock, the acoustic distance to the train horn, police literally reconstructed her final movements. And this wasn't a path leading out the front doors. These clues led investigators straight down into the hidden depths beneath the hotel, specifically into a forgotten old maintenance tunnel. This whole sequence brilliantly illustrates how tiny, easily overlooked details, like a mundane train schedule, can uncover absolutely devastating truths hidden right beneath our feet. Because inside that dark maintenance tunnel, crime scene investigators found some old insulation. Wrapped carefully inside it were a necklace and a hotel key. But tragically, they also found human bones. DNA testing was immediately expedited, and the results confirmed our worst fears. The remains belonged to Hannah Lewis. The missing person case was now officially a homicide investigation. Now that Hannah had been found, the entire nature of the investigation instantly shifted. I want you to think about this logically for a second. Just like Detective Brooks did. Who could have possibly committed this crime and then hidden a body so effectively in the bowels of a functioning hotel? The central, burning question became, who had access to those specific maintenance tunnels 3 years ago? Digging into the hotel's construction and employment records from 3 years prior quickly yielded a single, glaring name: Victor Hayes. Victor was the maintenance supervisor at the time, but more importantly, because the hotel was undergoing massive renovations, Victor was literally the only employee who had completely unrestricted access to those underground tunnels. Naturally, when police brought Victor in for questioning, he played dumb. He completely denied everything and played the part of the innocent former employee perfectly. But investigators knew they had their guy. They just needed to find the smoking gun. And find it they did by executing a search warrant on Victor's personal property. While tearing through his garage, they found something he had kept as a trophy, which, as we know, is a very common but absolutely fatal mistake made by perpetrators. Hidden away in a box was Hannah's camera. And, astonishingly, the digital memory card inside it still worked. This really highlights the incredible importance of digital forensics in modern investigations. Keeping a victim's belongings almost always leads directly to a killer's downfall, and Victor Hayes was certainly no exception. What investigators found on that memory card was, honestly, nothing short of terrifying. It was undeniable video evidence of Hannah's final moments. The recovered footage showed Hannah frantically running down a hotel hallway. She looks absolutely terrified, constantly glancing over her shoulder. And then, the lens captures him. Victor Hayes actually appears on the screen, actively pursuing her. Immediately after he enters the frame, the recording just abruptly ends. This was it. This was the exact definitive proof the detectives needed. Faced with his own face right there on the video, Victor's denials completely crumbled, and he finally confessed to the whole thing. His confession really breaks down how a simple crime of opportunity can escalate into a horrific 3-year cover-up. So his motive? Well, Hannah had accidentally caught him in the act of stealing from other hotel guests. To silence her, he attacked, and utilizing the ongoing construction work, he hid her body deep down in the maintenance tunnels, fully believing that under all those fresh renovations, no one would ever find her. So we have a neatly wrapped up timeline, right? On the day of the confession, the case is officially closed, and Victor Hayes receives a very well-deserved life sentence in prison. Justice is served. But this explainer isn't quite over, because the strangest part of the entire story is still to come. Months after Victor is locked away, Detective Brooks decides to return to room 417 just one last time. He's walking through the burned, dusty room, just kind of reflecting on the case. But at the exact moment he prepares to leave, the hotel phone, a phone in a sealed room that hasn't functioned in years, begins to ring. Brooks slowly picks up the receiver. At first, there is just complete silence on the other end. No static, no dial tone, just pure silence. And then, cutting right through the quiet, he hears a very familiar whisper. "Thank you." And just like that, the line goes completely dead. Now, being a seasoned investigator, Brooks immediately tries to find a logical explanation for this. He contacts the phone company to trace the call, looking for a prankster, a glitch in the system, literally anything. But the phone company's confirmation leaves logic entirely in the dust. Their records are absolute. No call had ever been placed to room 417. Not that day, not that month, not once in the last 3 years. I mean, think about the technology we rely on every single day. A phone without a grid connection is essentially just a useless piece of plastic, right? The hardware in that room wasn't even connected to the grid anymore. It was physically, scientifically impossible for that phone to ring, let alone transmit a human voice. Which brings us to our final thought for this explainer. In the world of investigation, we heavily rely on tangible evidence. We know for sure that some crimes leave fingerprints. We know that some leave DNA. or a dropped camera, or a digital footprint. We use logic and hard science to put all the pieces together. But the mystery of Room 417 leaves us with a truly chilling realization. What exactly do we do when all the science in the world solves the crime, but completely fails to explain the phenomena surrounding it? Because sometimes, it seems, the only witness to a crime is a voice no one can explain. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive. Let that thought linger for a bit, and I'll catch you on the next one.